Nilly.
I'm good. Help me with him.
Let's get this off. Medical. Got one wounded at my location. Carter. You don't look so good. You gotta be more careful. I just got here. I'm not ready to see you two get blown to space dust just yet. Now let's get you down to sickbay.
Great.
Status report.
The repair crew made it inside. EPS flow is back to nominal levels. The SIF is back up.
How does this affect mission readiness, Mr. Ermot?
The Resolute suffered damage from the exploding bolts. But we've successfully moored to the station. The ship is secure. Our systems are coming back online, but we have a fair amount of repairs before we're ready to go.
Put a halt on the roll-off of Starbase engineering staff. We have a schedule to keep. Send updates to my ready room. Commander Rydek, with me. What a debacle. I was caught with my pants down. Not even on my own ship when the wave hit. I had to go running out of the Starbase commander's office just to... But you followed my order. I appreciate that. Hell, I'm relieved.
You're the captain of this ship. You give orders, and I'll execute them.
That's right. But you see my problem, don't you? They were all against me on that bridge. And they were ready to go against my orders. I'm not blind to it.
If there are any problems, I'll keep them in line.
At least I can count on you. Oh. Drink?
Sure. Thank you.
Your predecessor, Commander Sutherland, is missed. But for all the adoration of the crew, including the senior staff, I just couldn't rely on him. He would question, undermine me in front of the crew. I sometimes think they still hear his voice. That sort of thing is a way of lingering. And you can't argue with a ghost.
Captain, perhaps you and the crew would be better served if you look at this mission as a fresh start.
You can never really leave the past behind.
If we don't, you can never move forward.
Now, this won't be easy, but I'm glad I have you here with me.
Glad to be here, Captain.
And despite it all, we got our final Starfleet clearance to depart. So if you'll fetch Mr. Ermot, we'll knock out the final details of any outstanding repairs, and then we'll set out for Hotari.
Yes, sir. On second thought, better to keep my wits about me.
Of course. Ready or not, here we go.
All departments reporting full mission readiness. We've got our full complement on board.
This is my favorite moment, right now.
The start of a new mission is always full of possibility.
The Orion Syndicate could sell it as a drug.
Don't let the Admiralty hear you say that.
Captain on the bridge.
Sit. Sit, everyone. You all know, I'm not big on speeches. We're embarking on the first mission since our refit. Let's make it a good one. Disengage docking clamps.
Docking clamps released.
Thrusters ahead, Mr. Handar. Do it. Set a course for the Hotari system. Prepare to go to Warp 8.
Aye, Captain.
You know what? You take this one.
Me? Engage.
Simple, but effective.
Easy. Thank you. I'm fine. Really,
You don't look so good.
I have to get to sickbay.
Go.
Commander, help me get her inside!
Well, that was quite a scare. A few minutes more and it would have been one of the shortest tenures on record for a first officer.
Is that the engineer that was out on the hull?
That storm did a real number on him, but he'll live. Just needs rest. You should worry about yourself. Your deridium levels got dangerously low and destabilized your cell structure.
This is definitely one of the more memorable first days I can think of.
My name is Dr. Aram Duval, Chief Medical Officer. To be honest, I've never met a Kobliad before. You're...
Rare. I know.
I was going to say special. Your people's numbers have dwindled, despite the Federation's efforts to find a more readily available alternative to the deridium you need to survive. Yet you joined Starfleet, and managed to thrive. I imagine the responsibility must be overwhelming. Maybe even a burden at times.
It does make me unique, but it's not a burden at all. I'm honored to be Kobliad, to represent my people.
As you should be. And don't worry, I won't treat you like a science experiment. I just do the science and leave the experiments to Solano.
You don't agree with his methods?
I don't agree with his definition of acceptable risks. Not when the lives of your crew are at stake. My professional opinion is that the accident took a toll. More than he's willing to admit. He's overstressed, operating in the pressure cooker of his own mind. which is never a good headspace when the lives of your crew are at stake. What concerns me is that now he's even further away from the thing he's been chasing his entire career. The breakthrough discovery. The major innovation. Something he can put his name on. The more the time passes and the further out of reach it gets, the more risk he'll be willing to take.
I think after what happened, Captain Solano's learned his lesson. And whatever ambition he once had is on hold for a while.
He may say that, but we'll see what happens. I have to admit, I was concerned when I heard what happened on the bridge. You just followed Solano's orders despite having better options in front of you.
Huh. I guess word travels fast around here.
It's a small ship, and everyone's curious about the new XO. Fortunately, your cell structure's almost completely stabilized. And I'll spare us both the lecture, but I do feel it's my responsibility to remind you, without regular infusions of Duridium, you will not live. It's as simple as that.
Understood.
Then, my work here is done.
Lieutenant Bedrosian.
I came to see if you were okay. We were all pretty worried on the bridge. No one knew what was happening.
I don't want anyone to worry. This is just part of who I am. It doesn't define me.
Of course. I completely understand. And I would probably feel the same way if I were you. You trusted me earlier with the shields, and I appreciated that. I want you to know that I have your back.
Thank you.
Now, Carter, the emissions that gave you that burn are quite unusual, like everything else that goes with this storm. That's a combination of hyronolin and lectrazine to counter the radiation effects. That should help speed your healing. She's come by a couple of times to see you already. Be brief.
It's good to see you awake again. I was starting to get worried. Not that you aren't in good hands with Dr. Duvall. You did take one hell of a shot, though.
Ah, come on. You know you can't get rid of me that easy.
Don't push me, Diaz. You do not want to see me try.
No, nope. I am not getting on your bad side.
I am a formidable enemy. Millie was looking in on you too, by the way. But since it's just us right now, I had a chance to think about this while I was away. And I thought it was important that I just come out and tell you. Instead of tiptoeing around it. Or worse.
It's okay, Miranda. You can tell me anything.
I know that.
Then come on. Just spit it out.
I'm trying. Let me talk. What I'm trying to say is, we've been really good friends for a long time. But I got back here and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I want to see if there's more between us than just being friends.
Are you sure about this?
They're my feelings. Of course I'm sure.
Well, I just mean, seeing me in here, after we almost got killed out on the hull.
I felt this way before that, Carter. I like you. And I think there could be something more for us. So, what do you say?
That's a lot to think about.
I know it is.
So, maybe I should think it over.
Oh, yeah, take as long as you need. I get it. But don't leave me hanging.
Sorry to interrupt, but the patient needs to rest if he wants to get back to his old self.
Of course. Get better. And while you're resting up, think about what we talked about.
Approaching the rendezvous point outside Atari space.
Helm, bring us out of warp.
Dropping to impulse.
Ionic interference surging, Captain.
Shield integrity holding.
We can take it.
We are at the correct coordinates to meet the shuttle.
Commander Rydek, find us our diplomat, if you will.
Aye, Captain. Let's reduce the noise. Filter out environmental signals. I can manually tune what's left for Federation signal types. I've located the shuttle.
Opening comms.
On screen.
Shuttle to Resolute. Shuttle to Resolute. Debris field. Lost maneuvering. Losing.
I can't get it any clearer.
We won't get a transporter lock. It's just not happening.
Power up the tractor beam. We'll pull them directly into the docking bay.
Diaz, you good to run the tractor emitter?
Yes, sir.
You sure?
I'm sure.
Come on, Diaz. First thing, lock onto the shuttle and stabilize the rotation. We're pulling in debris.
I'm on it.
There's a large piece of debris headed for the shuttle. The tractor beam can't handle it.
Can our shields take it?
I believe so.
Commander Rydek, plot an intercept course.
On it. Here we go. Maneuvering thrusters bearing 53 Mark 17, 200 meters on an intercept course.
Maneuvering.
Got it.
Whoa! Someone's working hard on the bridge. Got the shuttlecraft on board.
Good job. We're on our way down to meet them.
Terra firma, so to speak.
Ambassador Spock? The captain will be right down to meet you, sir.
In that case, I will wait for him here.
Apologies for the landing, Ambassador. I was operating the tractor beam, sir. I take responsibility.
The craft suffered a few collisions, but I believe the saying is, it will buff out. We thought we were prepared for our arrival in Hotari space, but it is evident my craft was not sufficiently robust for such intense ionic activity.
The storm has been pretty intense.
There was an element that was most unusual. Before you came to our aid, our maneuvering thrusters and impulse engines were rendered inoperable. So we attempted a short traversal at warp speed, only to find that we could not achieve warp at all, even though our diagnostics computer showed no faults or anomalies. What do you make of that? When all indications say that warp speed is possible, but in practice, we find it is not.
I'd rather investigate than speculate.
A sound principle.
Take readings, run some additional diagnostic checks, and we'll get to the bottom of this.
Quite logical, Petty Officer...
Carter Diaz. Sir.
Thank you.
Ambassador Spock.
Excuse me.
I'm honored to have you aboard. I'd like to get right to it. We're already behind. Ambassador Spock, my senior staff. It's not every day that a captain gets to welcome a Starfleet legend aboard.
You flatter me, Captain Solano. But legend implies the past tense, whereas I am very much focused on our present circumstances.
I didn't mean to suggest you were stuck in the past. You're right, Ambassador. Not the most diplomatic choice of words.
Your experience comes from the past. But our present situation calls for it.
True enough.
We were hoping you could fill us in on the details. We got the basics from Starfleet. Two formerly peaceful neighbors are now on the brink of war.
Indeed, and the tension between them grows fiercer by the hour. Lydia and Hotari. The Lydians are the more advanced species. They made first contact with the Hotari over a century ago. This is Tau, the Hotari moon. It is rich in dilithium, and for decades, the Hotari and the Illydians have shared a mining operation there. The Illydians provide the technological resources, while the Hotari have served as the labor force. The stability of that arrangement was the source of their peace, until recently. The Hotari have suddenly and forcefully seized control of the mining operations and expelled the Illydians from their system. That is the official story, as told by the Hotari when they requested Federation mediation. But the details remain scant. Communications between all parties have been limited by the ionic interference.
Have the Illydians retaliated against the Hotari? Or taken any action against them?
Surprisingly, they have not yet responded in kind. They were open to a Federation presence, but it is unlikely the relatively primitive Hotari forces would stand a chance against the Illydian fleet in open war. Left unchecked, this conflict will result in more bloodshed, which is what we are here to prevent.
And the dilithium trade hangs in the balance.
Clearly, the Hotari have been exploited in this relationship.
Maybe we can persuade them peace is the more profitable alternative for everyone. They both profited from the mines. And for the Hotari, something is better than nothing. Peace is our objective, after all.
That is correct.
If we could convince them, it would restore the peace. But we would need the Hotari to accept a difficult compromise.
Made all the more difficult by the emotions flaring on both sides, no doubt.
Neither the Illidians or the Hotari are members of the Federation, so we can't make them do anything.
There is an additional complicating factor I should mention. In the past, the Federation has relied on the Illidians as a source of dilithium.
That certainly changes things.
Federation sources its dilithium from a lot of places.
Yeah, and this is one of them.
That means the Hotari have no reason to trust us.
I wouldn't go that far, Commander.
We are completely neutral in this matter, on neither one side nor the other. Any suggestion otherwise would compromise our position. Given the Federation's involvement in the Illidium dilithium trade, Captain Solano and I must make every effort to appear neutral in these negotiations.
What worries me is if this whole thing unravels, and we're at the mercy of the storm at less than full strength.
We can't let it come to that.
Considering what the Ion Storm has done to our ship, and the Ambassador's shuttle, we have to assume the Illidian fleet has had problems with it as well. This recent surge in the energy disturbance temporarily levels the playing field.
Commander Westbrook is correct. The energy anomalies around the Hotari systems have been noted in the past. But they have never been observed on the orders of magnitude we have seen in recent weeks.
If it's keeping the two sides talking instead of shooting at each other, that actually helps us negotiate a peace.
And we'll take advantage of that as long as it works in our favor.
And when it doesn't?
All the more reason to learn as much about it as we can while we are here. We do not want to be caught unprepared, should the energy anomaly continue to fluctuate. So I trust we understand our circumstances.
We're operating on a strict timetable here, and we're going to be leaving for the negotiations shortly. Commander Westbrook, I want you to leverage our systems to investigate the anomaly from here while we're gone.
Aye, Captain.
Thank you all.
Dismissed.
I want to speak to both of you privately.
Ambassador Spock, I'd like to make a formal introduction. My first officer, Commander Jara Rydek.
Commander, as you are aware, there are limits to what Captain Solano and I can do in our official capacity as representatives of the Federation. But someone in an unofficial capacity, your first officer, for example, would not be bound by those restrictions. Commander Rydek could ingratiate herself to certain parties behind the scenes, where they may be more candid in revealing information that could lead to a resolution.
She certainly goes her own way. Maybe that helps in this case. It would be unconventional.
With all due respect, Ambassador, I'm not a trained diplomat.
That's exactly what we're going to leverage.
I began my time in Starfleet as a science officer, not as an ambassador. We must be adaptable in the line of duty.
Well, I hope Commander Rydek will have more luck finding out what really happened than we will through official diplomatic channels.
The fate of the negotiations, the interests of the Federation, and the prospect for peace may very well depend on it.
Mr. Diaz, I understand you have already discussed the warp drive failure with Ambassador Spock?
I have.
It is imperative that the Ambassador's shuttle be flight ready. I need you both to ascertain the root cause of the system failures he encountered.
I'm surprised, Commander. I thought you would have wanted to work on Ambassador Spock's shuttle yourself.
I respect the Ambassador and his many accomplishments, but I do not derive any satisfaction from interacting with his shuttle as if it were somehow transubstantiated through its association with him. Especially when I have the entirety of this starship to concern myself with.
When you look at it logically, yes, it is just a shuttle. No different than any of the others.
There is plenty that is different about it, and that is what you are to investigate. But please limit your findings to observable scientific phenomena.
We'll try to restrain ourselves.
Then I will leave you to it. Make note of any abnormalities in your report. Carry on.
It seems like he's warming up to us.
Yeah.
Even Chovok has to look at that face and know you've earned some real respect. And I have to admit that I owe you one. You were right to make me go first. I don't know what I was thinking.
You've pulled me out of trouble how many times? Call it even.
Okay. At the very least, maybe I can track down that bottle of Saurian brandy you're still on the hook for. But first, we have work to do.
Ready to go?
All set. Let's run the diagnostic. So, I know about your talk with Miranda.
You do?
She sent me a Priority 1 dispatch right after your conversation. Yes or no, that's one thing. But I can't believe you said you needed to think about it.
I did need to think about it.
Well, you can't leave this unsettled. It's not fair to her. She was direct with you. Didn't play games. Neither should you.
Well, honestly, I was worried you wouldn't approve of, you know, fraternization with...
Don't make this about me. You can see where this goes between you two, or you can stay friends. But don't screw this up. I like my friends, and I like our group. I don't want to lose that. Is that thing done?
Yeah, it's wrapping up. Let's see. The relays along the primary EPS are blown. The backup relays are all intact.
An EPS overload from the warp drive could cause that. But how did the shuttle end up dead in the water?
Huh. Well, maybe the ship's data recorder can tell us something. Here.
They were only about 8 minutes from their plotted warp point. No faults, just those warnings. What are they?
The warp field became inverted suddenly.
I've seen this happen when the center warp coil cracks.
A cracked warp coil throws a fault code.
Still, we should take a look.
Subspace variance out of tolerance. What does that mean?
It means the main navigation array lost sight of space somehow.
Will the array going offline cause that?
Yes, but it should have also thrown a fault code.
There was a complete warp cascade failure.
Wow. They're lucky the shuttle didn't turn inside out.
Makes me think the computer panicked on the warp field equation.
Any one of these failures should have thrown a fault.
If it was caused by a system failure.
None of this caused the relays to blow. Roll forward to when that happened.
Yes, ma'am.
So here, they take a moment to get their bearings and they attempt to re-engage the warp drive.
There. That's the relays blowing.
And look, there's another warp system alert.
They're all the same. Subspace variance out of tolerance, or warp inversions. Finally, there's a complete warp cascade failure.
Then it's one of two things. Either a warp coil is cracked, or the navigation array is offline.
That makes sense.
Divide and conquer. You want to check the warp coils or the navigation array? I'll check the other. Let's not overcomplicate this. One of these systems is likely broken.
I'll check the nacelles for a cracked coil. checked every coil on the port nacelle for imbalances. If any coil in either engine were cracked, I would have detected it. So, it must be the navigation array.
Except it's not. Checked and double-checked.
Well, the readings don't lie.
Here comes the security detail for the way team. Hey, going planet side?
Yep, as soon as the negotiating team comes down from the bridge. And you've got your hands full, opening every compartment on this shuttle. I hope you're not just trying to keep busy to avoid thinking about some other things. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. And lucky for you, I've got a ride to catch.
I'm actually done thinking about it. I've made up my mind.
You have?
Hey, Maris. Aren't these those button pushers you're always hanging out with?
And you're the phaser jockeys we always beat in Parisi squares, right?
All aboard for Hotari.
That another one of the captain's railroad things?
Gotta be. I just usually zone out by the time he gets to the whole, steam engines were the warp drives of their day part. Catch y'all later.
You don't want to miss your train.
I do have to go. So, you said you made up your mind. You have something you want to say to me? The train is leaving the station. I'd like to know what I'm coming back to.
I think we should keep things the way they are. You're one of my best friends. And you mean so much to me, and I don't want to risk losing that. I really don't.
I understand. I gotta go. Sorry.
That went well enough. It'll be fine. All right, where were we?
So, the warp coils in the navigation array are fine, but the nav computer doesn't seem to think so.
I'm out of ideas short of field stripping the shuttle from bow to stern.
You wanna take this out of the shuttle and throw it on the bench?
Oh, real hands-on maintenance. I like it. Okay, the nav computer is patched into the ship.
The ship's computer can double-check our work. If the shuttle's nav computer is putting out false data, we'll know it.
Let's run through the shuttle's logs again.
Running now. Same. Warp field inversion and a cascade failure. However, the Resolute computer doesn't show the same subspace variance.
We're in the same conditions that the shuttle was in when it failed. Why wouldn't the ship's computer get a matching result?
What if the subspace variance was a momentary occurrence?
That's a possibility, and it would explain why the simulation under our current sensor readings failed to reproduce the issue.
But a subspace anomaly strong enough to cause a warp field collapse would leave graviton ripples for days.
Let's run with the momentary subspace variance theory for now. Roll forward to the shuttle's attempt to re-engage the warp drive. We need the conditions of space around the shuttle at the moment of warp failure.
Resuming simulation.
Error in warp field calculation. Cochrane formula variables are out of range.
That right there. Take the shuttle sensor data from that moment.
Computer, why did the warp field calculation fail?
Warp field pressure returned non-orthogonal. Results are undefined.
That doesn't help.
Wait, what if we use a different ship?
Put the Resolute into the simulation instead of the shuttle.
Yeah, it should warp just fine. Unless... Computer, run the simulation with the Resolute.
Resolute simulated.
Computer, give me manual control on the warp power.
Static field intensity, warp 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. 3, warp pressure is destabilizing. Error in warp field calculation. The warp drive has experienced a system-wide cascade failure. Warp field collapsed. Subspace variance is out of tolerance. Cochrane formula results are undefined.
Bingo.
What-o?
The same moment when the shuttle failed to warp, so did the ship. Whatever happened to the shuttle just happened to us. The Resolute will not sustain warp.
We can't leave Hotari space.
Ambassador Spock, Captain Solano, welcome to Hotari. We are honored you've come. My name is Tylos Altaris, Minister of Diplomatic Affairs.
The honor is ours. And this is Commander Jara Rydick, first officer aboard the USS Resolute. You'll find she has a keen mind and unique insight into the dynamics between the Hotari and the Illidians.
It's very nice to meet you.
Likewise. I hope...
These must be the representatives of the mighty Federation. The reigning authority in the galaxy. Or so we've been led to believe. Whether that's true or not remains to be seen. But, either way, we're grateful you've made the time to come to our little corner of the universe.
And you are?
This is Galvin, and this is Citron, the heroes of the revolt in the mines.
Let's hope this is the last time we ever have to come here.
If you'll excuse me.
I think we're about to begin.
Did you hear the arrogance from that guy? I don't know what we're walking into here, but that guy was something.
He certainly seems full of himself. No missing that. You could probably see it from orbit.
What a piece of work.
Remember, we are here at their invitation. We must remain deferential whenever possible.
Of course, but even that has its limits.
Ambassador Spock, welcome to Hotari Prime.
The honor is mine, Your Majesty.
That the Federation would send one of their most respected representatives is not only an honor to the Hotari people and their queen, but a recognition of our stature and importance.
Let's get on with it, shall we? With all due respect to the Federation and their ambassador, they have no authority here. We are not members of their alliance. We are not subject to their rule, nor yours. We demand the immediate return of all mining operations to Illidian control, as it has been for centuries and will be for centuries more. That has always been our understanding.
That understanding has changed.
Then you invite war!
And if you cannot remain silent, you will be silenced. But his point is well taken. What is the Federation's interest in this matter? Perhaps you would have us trade one oppressor for another?
The Federation remains neutral. Our only interest is the peaceful resolution of this conflict. We are here at your request, Your Majesty.
For now.
I get the sense she's cut from the same cloth as Galvin. I thought they wanted us here.
Was there something you wanted to say, Captain?
Oh, no. My apologies.
And what about the Kobliad?
She's not part
She
of...
can speak for herself, can't she? Then let her. Now then, what is your name?
Commander Jara Rydek, Your Majesty.
Being a Kobliad, you would know better than anyone. Your people suffered brutal treatment at the hands of the Cardassians. Their injustice towards the Kobliad is as unimaginable as it is unforgivable. Not unlike how we have been treated by the Elidians.
As much as they'd have you believe they are the victims here, remember it was the Hotari who attacked us. Hundreds of innocent Elidians were slaughtered without mercy in those mines.
The blood is on their hands, not ours!
Quiet! If after all the Kobliad suffered, you finally had the chance to right that wrong, to get out from under their control, would you take it? Or would you negotiate a peace?
I can't speculate on something that never happened, Your Majesty. Sadly, that opportunity never came for the Kobliad.
No, it did not. But we'd be wise to learn from their example, before we too find ourselves facing extinction. The Federation is the most powerful, most advanced alliance in the galaxy. It's widely known we have an abundance of dilithium in our mines. And it's in your interest to secure a steady supply.
Your Majesty, if I may.
Ambassador Spock would have us believe you're here as a neutral party in the interest of peace. So why are you really here? I want the truth, not your Federation rhetoric.
I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but it's really not my place to say what the Federation's interests might be.
You are their representative.
I am. But Ambassador Spock is better suited to address your concerns.
What they haven't said, but cannot deny, is a simple truth. The dilithium trade would not and will no longer exist without Elidian involvement. We created it for the benefit of everyone, especially the Hotari. We've given them warp technology. We've let them share in the profits. We've made their lives infinitely better than before dilithium was discovered. All of that goes away if the Federation turns a blind eye to their treachery.
That is enough of your lies! The Hotari are quite capable of running the mines. We've done so for centuries. So tell me, who deserves control of the dilithium trade and the mines on Tau? Who should the Federation recognize? The Hotari or the Elidians? It can only be one or the other, not both.
If I have to choose only one, then it would have to be the Hotari.
Well said! How could the just and wise Federation make any other choice?
This is an outrage. The Federation has lost all credibility.
The mines are ours. Lydia will not be deterred. We will take back our mines by any means necessary.
And you will see more blood spilled.
I am more than willing to address your concerns, Your Majesty. Yours as well, Representative. But I suggest we could have a more productive conversation with a smaller group. Perhaps only the most essential representatives.
I suppose there is some sense to that. I hope we meet again, Jara Ryder.
Spock and I will cover everything on the diplomatic front. You make nice with the locals and see if you can get some answers. We need to find out why the Hotari are so willing to risk war. What happened in those mines?
Soothing.
Commander, I'm glad you've chosen to side with the Hotari. I knew the Federation would see through the Elidians' baseless claims and protect the interests of my people.
To be clear, I'm not on either side of this conflict. Our only interest is peace.
I will keep that in mind.
I assume you were there, the day the mines were seized from the Elidians.
Not seized. Reclaimed. And restored to their rightful owners. Yes, I was there. We had to be decisive. Before the Elidians could even realize their worst nightmares upon them.
Were the Hotari miners armed during the revolt? I'm just trying to understand how it happened.
If by that you mean armed with centuries of abuse and exploitation at the hands of the Elidians, then yes.
Which doesn't really answer my question.
We had them vastly overwhelmed from the start. They respect one thing above all else, and that is force. The greater the force, the more certain the outcome. Any talk of making peace is just that, and worth little without the strength to secure it. Which makes me wonder about your ship, the Resolute. Undoubtedly the Federation's finest warship. Ready to contend with anything the Elidians might have in store. Or is that not true? Maybe I've misjudged it.
It wasn't designed as a warship. More for scientific research and exploration.
But the Federation must have ships designed for war.
Technically, they're Starfleet ships representing the Federation. But yes.
I see.
Sidron.
A pleasure meeting you, Commander. I'm sure we'll cross paths again.
I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know, but these negotiations rely on the Federation's neutrality, as does any hope you might have for a supply of dilithium in the future. So, why you would choose to side with the Hotari escapes me. Without Elidian involvement, there is no dilithium trade. But clearly, you weren't aware.
We are and will remain completely neutral. Our only interest is the peaceful resolution to this conflict.
As is ours. Of course, the question is,
At what price?
Major Solid Arminta, Special Attaché, Illidian Armed Forces. Pleasure to meet you, Commander. I have my issues with the Hotari, but I have to give them some credit. They know how to seize an opportunity. Inciting an uprising the same day as a massive, once-in-a-lifetime ion storm.
Our assumption was that this storm was just an anomaly.
Yes, a very convenient anomaly. At least that was what we were told. Of course, I wasn't there. But who am I to say otherwise?
You sound skeptical.
Well, the official story is that it was the storm that enabled the revolt. How else do a bunch of unarmed, unorganized miners seize control of an entire moon, much less thousands of mines? But I've talked to people who were there. They tell a different story. They say they're lucky to have escaped with their lives. That it was more than just the storm. That somehow the miners were able to harness the energy from the storm. I know it sounds crazy. I'm not even sure I believe it myself. But that's what they said.
You just answered your own question. How do a group of miners do something that in theory can't be done? That's how. Harnessing the storm.
But even if it's true, how does that even happen?
You tell me.
If you'll excuse me, Commander Ryder.
Commander, if I could have a quick word with you.
Of course.
I'm encouraged to see the Federation supporting my people. I'm afraid of what might happen without your help.
I'm glad to hear it. I just hope you're not the only one who feels that way.
I apologize for that. These are unusual times, to say the least. Much is changing. I saw you speaking with the Illidian. I'm sure they're painting themselves as the victims.
The Illidians are under the impression the Hotari are somehow the cause of the ion storm.
Which I'm sure they attribute to our lack of experience.